Hey folks, and welcome back to Replay, the show where games are art. We're back with more of Final Fantasy VI. This time, we've arrived in Mirando. If you remember, we followed a bird here after we first got the airship, but I decided to go off and get Terra back first. So now, here we are, wandering around town. I have no idea what that was a reference to, but this is clearly a reference to Cyan. As is this, so clearly he's been here. Now, I'm gonna quickly do some shopping, and then, because there's some good stuff here, and then come back in a little bit. So, see you in a bit. So, I'm actually still shopping, but I just wanted to comment, this is a clue to where we're supposed to go next. Really, the only context we have for it being a clue is that we're being told it in the same town that we're being told that Cyan was here. But, you know, for RPGs of the time, that's good enough. Zozo is the place we're supposed to go to next after we're done here. But there's still a little bit more clue to be found first. Now, this is another person with an interesting comment, because so much so far has been about these relics of the past, about hauntings, and about us as the past coming to haunt Kefka. But at the same time, we do, in this new world, have to let go of the old one. It's impossible to go backwards. What was will never be again. All we can do is try to keep what was in mind as we create what's new. So, even though memories of the world before are a strong theme, we have to release them. Now, this is kind of significant to this next chunk of the game. Yeah, again, we know he can't be from Mobley's, and actually I wonder, because I always go get Terra, but if I had skipped Mobley's entirely, just gone straight to getting Edgar and then the airship and then come here, would that line be different? Or would that, like, not be unlocked until I went to Mobley's? I honestly don't know. I've never done that. Given the game's attention to detail, I feel like that could very much be the case. On the other hand, it could very much not, given the time period. And what is this guy? Ah, yes, that is a place we will be going to much, much later. But, now obviously the little Zozo clue is nothing compared to this big one of the bird flying there. So clearly, homing pigeons being prone to returning, you know, home, Zozo is the place we've got to go to next. And this is actually significant, because remember, Zozo is the town of liars. And what's Sian doing here? He's deceiving that girl into believing that he's someone he's not. Now, the letters have brought her happiness and comfort in this decayed world, but it's a lie. And so it makes sense that Cyan is in the City of Liars. Note also that Zozo is completely unchanged. Every other town we've been to has had differences, large and small, from the world as it was before. Zozo doesn't. Zozo essentially was so bad that it's unaffected by the apocalypse. It's it's gone almost without notice. Even the random encounters are the same. And, in fact, the sameness of them is a little boring, even though it's a cute conceit that this is the worst city in the world and hasn't been affected by the apocalypse. It's a little in terms of actual gameplay. Not to mention, getting into the whole class thing before. Why is the city of poor people the one that's nothing but thieves and liars? Shouldn't that be the city of rich people? But given they've already established that Zozo, it's still a cute gag that the apocalypse has rolled through here and nothing has changed. Still, though, let's move on to where Cyan is. So I skipped it, but I picked up some rust rid from the one truth teller in town, and that has allowed me to enter, to unlock the door to Mount Zozo that was rusted shut and we couldn't go into the first time we were here. So now I'm in Mount Zozo, and you'll note the enemies here. That bear is a palette swap of an enemy that was on Mount Koltz in the World of Balance. The other one is a palette swap of an enemy from that we just saw in Zozo. I've commented before that this game finds some very clever ways to essentially justify the amount of asset reuse that is necessary for a game this size in this era. And this is a great example of that. Everything here is built out of the same assets as Mount Koltz. The music is the same, it's using the same tile set, just arranged a little differently. 2 tile sets actually, but it's the same 2 tile sets. This is the inside the mountain set, and we'll see in a little bit there's an outside the mountains set. And what's clever about that, what makes this more than a recycled dungeon, is that it turns this into a mirror of Mount Koltz. On Mount Koltz, we were pursuing, although we didn't know it at the time, we were seeking Sabin, this powerful warrior who was living up on the mountainside to hone his skills. Now we've got Cyan, similarly a powerful warrior, a physical fighter like Sabin, who is also retreated onto the mountain. But where Cyan is lying to that young woman, the whole thing with Sabin was that he was the honest and truthful disciple, not the sneaky one who betrayed their master. So this is, in a sense, the ruined version of the balance that was Mount Koltz. These elemental shields are so annoying because there's not enough. There's in Final Fantasy IV, there were elementally themed dungeons. Final Fantasy I as well. I think maybe some of the in-between ones too. But those two I clearly remember. There were elementally themed dungeons, and elemental equipment was really useful there because almost everything there was either vulnerable to your elemental weapons, or your elemental shields would reduce damage, so on. This game doesn't really have an ice dungeon or a fire dungeon, which is, it sort of does with, the snowy patch on Narsh, but that's very small, and it's not really themed in the sense that the enemies, some of them use snow attacks, but they use other elements as well. The enemies there aren't consistently weak to fire, so on and so forth. which makes it very difficult to know which elemental piece of equipment is going to help versus hurt. I guess they're mostly there for fighting the dragons, about which more in a bit, but I honestly have no idea which one would be good against the wind dragon. Now, the Aegis shield, on the other hand, that's just generally good stuff, because that's, you know, broad spectrum elemental defense with no increased vulnerabilities. Ooh, and a gold hairpin. That's really nice. That is the item that I passed up to get Mog in the World of Balance. Yeah, I need my trainer at my weapon back. And it halves magic costs, which is excellent. The main thing going on here, though, and I want to talk about this. Mount Koltz is the last time that we were traveling about actively seeking allies. On Mount Koltz, we were headed to meet the returners. That was the last time in the World of Balance that we were actively seeking out someone to ally with. Everyone we met after that point was more or less accidental. Now we're seeking out our allies again. And where is one of the first places we go but the Mount Koltz mirror? It's a very clever way of making the two worlds reflect one another. Although, heck, just right here, Mount Koltz had an area which looked almost exactly like this, but we went left to right. In fact, on Mount Koltz, we were almost always, when we are outside, going left to right. Here, we're mostly going right to left. Now, for English language players, the implication is that on Mount Koltz we were going forward, and here we're going backward, because that's how English is read. What's interesting is that for Japanese, it's the opposite implication. Moving from left to right is going backwards. Moving from right to left is going forwards. I don't really have a good explanation for why you'd be going backwards on Mount Koltz. Honestly, in video game logic, left to right is still usually forwards, going back to, like, Mario. But here, we're going forwards. We are moving forward to find Cyan. We're also advancing his characterization a bit. After Terra and Celeste, Cyan is one of the characters that gets the most character development in the course of this game. And we're here going to see the next major stage, which is exactly what we heard about in Miranda, letting go of the past. That is Cyan's big problem. I mean, we met him in mourning. We had this whole quest about his family leaving, but he's never really left himself. We never... Like, he was just standing there when the Phantom Train sequence ended. We never saw him walk out, because in a sense, he never has walked out. He is still standing at that station, staring after his lost family. He's still in mourning. He still exists in that liminal space between life and death. But now the whole world has been drawn into that space. The whole world is dying. It's been horribly wounded, and it is declining toward death. Magic has been unleashed, and everything is liminal now. So, Cyan, in order to help bring the world out of that state with the rest of us, needs to start coming out of it himself. He needs to move on. That creates an interesting character arc for him. One which, honestly, most of the other characters don't so much have. Like I said, Terra and Celeste have clear character arcs. Terra is about learning to connect with others. Celeste is about learning to love herself. And then connect to others. But Cyan's is about learning to let go of love. Not in the sense of ceasing to love, but in the sense of accepting loss and moving on with his life. And I'm going to fight a dragon now, because this is a JRPG, so that's what you do. Pro tip, if you stand one space to the right of the switch, the dragon attacks you slightly earlier. You don't have to wait as long for it. The Storm Dragon is actually pretty tough. It's not a great pick for the first dragon to fight, but it's the first one I've come across, so I'm going to tackle it first. Now, we actually saw what the dragons are about a while back, not long after we entered the World of Balance. Or, I mean, the World of Ruin, where it was mentioned that the dragons had been unleashed. Even before that, in the World of Balance, there was mention of some kind of ancient power that was sealed by 8 dragons. Those dragons, thanks to Kefka trashing the planet, have been awoken, released, whatever, and now they're scattered around the game for us to fight. Beating all of them gets you a basically useless materia, but it's a side quest. It exists. Yeah, so I'm going to fight this thing for a while, because I think most of the rest of what I want to say about Cyan can wait until I actually find him in here. So, back after I've slain the dragon. Alright, that took a little while, but I've finally killed the sucker. And we can move on. Ooh, float. That'll be useful against a certain dragon coming up a bit later. So, I'm now nearly to the end of the dungeon, and I've found this. Cyan's admission that he lied. And this is actually really important, as I'll discuss as soon as we're done reading this. He's telling her to move on. He's telling her what he wants someone to tell himself. And here we see him standing on a cliff that looks exactly like the cliff that Sabin and Sabin and he threw themselves off of after they left the Phantom Train area. This is his place for his leap of faith. It's very similar to the cliff that Celeste threw herself off of. It's not, a decision to die, but a decision to live by passing through death. It's a decision to leave that liminal space and return to reality. A decision to reach out and create change instead of dwelling on what was. And so we move from reading that letter, from seeing how he has made this decision to tell the truth, to him realize, to that space for that leap of faith. His realization that he needs to do it for himself. His embarrassment here is very cute as well, by the way. But what Cyan has realized, it's very easy to see someone else's mistakes. And sometimes you will say something to someone else, you'll give them some advice, and then realize that you're really talking to yourself. And that's, I think, what has happened with Cyan here. He saw that girl and on some level recognized that they were the same. They had both lost someone they loved, and he thought he could spare her that pain by pretending to be the person that she loved. But at the same time, that meant he got to receive these letters about love. He got to play the role of the person who was loved, and see, there he is right there saying how much alike they are. He was playing a role that recreated what he had lost. And as he realized that, he told her that she needed to change. He told her the truth, that this loss had occurred, and that it was necessary to face it and accept it and move on. And that's now what he's starting to do as well. It's not quite as simple as that. He's started, not finished. Oh yeah, this is a thing. I have heard that this is part of a dummied out side quest that would allow you to teach Cyan the tool command, but I don't actually think that's true. I've never seen it as anything other than a rumor. I've never seen it from any kind of in-the-know source. What I think is that, first of all, Book of Secrets, I know, is actually a Woolseyism. It was porn in the Japanese. And what I think is going on is that he has, this porn to comfort him, and he has his Book of Machines. He was trying to become more familiar with machinery. He knows that he's bad with it, and he's trying to change. It's honestly kind of sweet, except for the part with the porn. But, he's a lonely man. Honestly, I've never seen any post-apocalyptic fiction address this, but my God, would having the Earth's last stockpile of porn make you, like, a power to be reckoned with. Oh. What? This is not where I meant to come. Although, that's right, I forgot about this. It's the Omni Jump. Now, she already knows Float. But Haste 2 is one of the most useless spells in the game. Hands down. Haste 2 is awesome. Because everyone gets to move more often. What could be better than that? Why do I have this pose like I'm casting a spell? That's interesting. I've never seen that happen outside of combat. Anyway. Where was I? Yeah. Cyan has really only started his journey. He's recognized that he needs to let go, but that doesn't mean that he's actually let go. You'll notice he didn't actually take the leap of faith. He's still hanging back. This is still not where I'm trying to go. That said, I think next stop should probably be the Theveldt. Although, it'd be nice if I could... Aha! Yes. I thought there was a Esper here. Yeah. That's a lot cheaper than the asking price in the World of Balance. And Seraphim is another very good Esper. It's one of the best healing Espers, even though he already knows everything it teaches. But that's just a good mix of basic healing spells. And the Esper itself does pretty good healing when you summon it. Yeah, there's nothing Kieran would teach him that Seraphim can't. Although, yeah, I'm definitely going to want her to learn it next. Okay. Anyway, I think the time has now come. Unless there's any other espers I can pick up at this stage that I'm not remembering. Let me try to remember if there is. And I'll get back to you all when I've either found an esper or given up and gone to the Theveldt. Alright, I believe we are now on the Theveldt. I've switched around my party a bit. Cyan now has the Genji Glove Black Belt combo. And I've removed Edgar entirely. For now, Celeste is out as well, but I'll be bringing her back in as soon as I get Gau. Because Gau still works basically the same way as before. He shows up on the Theveldt after a battle and joins your party if he, ouch, so chooses. Which he'll only do if you have an open slot. In fact, I'm not sure why I said so chooses, because he does it when there's an open slot. Once I've got him... and there he is. Now you just have to wait. And hope that zombie Cyan doesn't murder him. Oh. So now, I have to decide whether I want to try to get some more thingies with him. Rages, or just go back to the airship and get Celeste. Either way, I'll be back when I go to the... I'll be back when something worthy of comment happens. I've decided to keep Gau for this one dungeon, the cave in the Theveldt. Which, already, something interesting is happening. There's a doggy. Specifically, Shadow's dog, whose name I am blanking on. The implication is that he's going to show up to help us, but to be honest, I can't remember whether he actually does or not. Even if he does, I'm pretty sure none of us have I'm pretty sure none of us have the increased limit break frequency that Shadow does, so he won't show up much. Speaking of, I'm not sure if I've ever commented on that before, but this is actually the game where limit breaks were introduced, even though they're not mentioned until Final Fantasy VII. But each character in the game has a unique attack that there is a random chance of them doing when you use the fight command while they're at low HP. And you can tell they're at low HP because they, like, slump. I have only ever seen Shadows and Terra's. Terra's is this wind attack where it actually looks a lot like Sabin's wind-based blitz, where wind sprays across the screen and she spins around and throws little green wind blades at everyone. Shadows is unique because Shadows comes up a lot more often. And he actually has two. One is his dog taking damage for him, such that he doesn't take any damage from an incoming attack. The other is actually a counter to that. Sometimes that'll trigger and that's all that happens. Sometimes it'll trigger and his dog will counterattack and do damage to the enemy. Now, I'll be honest, the asset reuse here I've got no justification for. It's a dungeon we've been in before. It's just changed shape in the World of Ruin. But the Theveldt is all about asset reuse. It's a whole place where you fight past enemies. So I guess that's as close to a justification as we're going to get. Otherwise, this is basically just a place to have a Lassie sequence. A dog shows up, barks at us, we follow it, and it leads us to an injured person. Oh, hey! Look at the doggy and the sprawled person next to it. Now, if we hadn't waited for Shadow and helped him escape the floating continent, that would be Realm lying there instead of him. Because, of course, Realm is the other one that has a connection to the dog. But because we did do that, it's Shadow instead. And here we are. We've saved them. Fortunately, this means we're not going to have to go through the dungeon again. Unfortunately, it means we've got to fight a boss. This is an interesting concept for a boss, although it's actually a recycled idea from Final Fantasy IV, if not earlier. In that game, you fight an Earth Elemental boss named Mylon in the English Super Nintendo release. He's actually Scarmiglione, but that wouldn't fit the character limits at the time. And you beat him, and then you do some stuff, and then on your way back out of the dungeon, you have to fight the resurrected zombie Mylon. This is fairly similar, but compressed. You fight the Behemoth. Ow. And then, eventually, he comes back as a zombie. Like right now, perhaps. And then it does this cute little thing where it reverses into a rear attack, which was also the case with the zombie version of Mylon. He attacked you from behind, but it was treated as two separate battles. Here it's one ongoing battle where we fight an enemy in front of us and then turn around to fight an enemy behind us. It's an interesting concept that hasn't been used much in the series, even after this point, at least as far as I ever played. Now, there is a quick and easy way to kill him, but it's so cheatery and cheap, I don't even want to do it. Because, well, he's a zombie now. Any zombie-type enemy in the game can be killed with a Phoenix Down or a life spell. But honestly, he's not that hard, it's not necessary, and it's just more fun to fight him honestly. And apparently we stole his skin, and we'll be using it as armor later. One little is we can't do anything for her here. The game is assuming that I'm rescuing Realm here because you're not supposed to know to wait for Shadow. He's kind of a bonus thing. That's pretty much also the only reason we go to Thamasa, as opposed to any of the towns we flew past on the way there. And this is a great little subplot, great little side quest that is a really cool way to fill in a character's backstory, I think, which is Shadow's dreams. This is the one you get. You always get this dream for rescuing him. There are 5 dreams in total. This is the they all represent his memories from before he was Shadow. and this is the chronologically last one. He is leaving this very house in Thamasa, and the dog is coming with him. Now, we already know what's going on here. He and Realm are the only people who can equip the Memento Ring, the relic of Realm's mom. He's her dad. He was in Thamasa, living in her house, and then he left. The girl is a little ambiguous. It's not clear whether Realm was already born and he abandoned her and her mother, or if he didn't know, or he abandoned a pregnant woman, or he didn't know she was pregnant when he left. All possibilities. At this point, it's a bit ambiguous which it is. But that's actually all we can do with Shadow right now. He won't come with us. He just stays in bed. The same is actually true of Realm if you rescue her this way. She doesn't actually join you at this point any more than Shadow does. Now this is interesting. This is a clue to the next thing to do with Cyan, to continue his character development. Cyan's got some demons he's got to deal with. There are literally demons that attack sleeping people in Doma Castle. Do the math. However, we're not going to do that yet, because honestly, that's a fairly challenging chunk of game that I generally leave to be one of the last things I do. So, I'm now back to my party of Tara, Sabin, Edgar, and Celeste that I was using for a while, and at the Coliseum, and Ultros's final appearance in the game. He's a receptionist. That's it. He pretty much only existed to be a jokier version of Kefka, and so just as Kefka spends the entire World of Ruins sitting on his butt in a tower, Ultros is going to spend it sitting on his butt as a receptionist, which I guess is the jokier version of a god? Yeah. Anyway, this is another reference to the whole Siegfried go-go quest that never happened. So, the Coliseum is what that guy was talking about way back when, that he wanted to build a monument to war. It's a place where one-on-one battles occur. It's a little annoying. Basically, the way it works is you bet an item. The item you bet determines both who you fight and what they offer in return. If you win, you get the item they're offering. If you lose, you get nothing. Either way, if I'm remembering right, you lose the item you bet. Which... Actually, no. I'm pretty sure that's not true. I'm pretty sure you do keep the item you bet if you win. Regardless, if you bet the Striker, which is a weapon found in the cave where Shadow was wounded, so presumably it's what he was doing there, was looking for this weapon. If you bet it, he will fight you. The problem is, your character is entirely computer-controlled, which means if you use a character that you've been using for a big chunk of game, they've got a lot of useless garbage spells that they might use, and end up losing the fight, which is why I picked Sabin. Sabin knows basically nothing except cure spells and powerful attacks and physical attacks. And then I just gave him the black belt and the Genji glove and beat Shadow with ease. Now he's in my party. So, yeah. I've got Shadow back. My team is really starting to shape up. And things are looking up. I think next I will probably go for Realm. But as that's a fairly lengthy side quest, I think I'm going to leave that for next time. So, I'll see you all then. Bye!